Everyone, and welcome to another session of Courage in Crisis. This is a program brought to you by the Moravian Church, Eastern West Indies Province, and we are some persons, some professionals that decided that we want to support and provide support to our members and to our friends across the Caribbean and across the world. This afternoon, we have the pleasure of chatting with some important persons, some VIP, very important persons, some teachers. And I know that when you think about teachers at this time, many persons can understand the strain and the stress that they've been under. So I'm very pleased to welcome with us this afternoon, Denise Gilbert from Antigua, Carrie-Anne Doughty from Barbados, and Damon Bacchus from St. Kitts. I'm just going to get them to just share with you a little bit about how they've been doing. I guess we can start with Denise, how you've been doing, how the last couple of months have been treating you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have been doing well. It had been a new thing, but because of the plans that we had made, we got through. I'm not really in the classroom, and so I cannot speak to online learning like the other teachers, but as deputy principal, I supported them. And so it was a new thing, and it has been well so far. Thank you.
Carrie-Anne, can you continue? And then we can continue from there.
Hi, for me, hello everyone. For me, the online teaching was an experience. We only had one session to learn everything about online teaching, but with communication, cooperation, everything kind of ran smoothly, but it was not as easy as it sounds.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hi, good afternoon. Yes, the online learning has been a transition for teachers here in St. Kitts and Nevis. We're talking about persons who would not have been used to the technology, having to get used to it critically. And so there have been some hiccups, but we are transitioning smoothly and we're getting ready for the reopening of school in September.
Awesome. What I want to kind of point out or kind of highlight here, most persons across the Caribbean would have had an extended school year, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, where because of the lockdown that most of us experienced, the school term technically started later, but kind of not really. It was a kind of shift that occurred where students transitioned to virtual classes and teachers prepping for that and children and parents prepping for that. So most persons would have ended their school year way later than usual, and especially those persons who would have been associated with CXC and CAPE students doing exams. I know exams ran down to like kind of know it's still going on for some persons for certain things. What was that like and how did it impact on you? The fact that basically you were working kind of continuously from January kind of all the way down to the middle of the year. How did that impact on you? And anyone can answer.
I would say for me personally, it was very stressful. While I was doing the online teaching and so forth, I would have also been pursuing my master's degree. And so my research paper was due on July 31st. So trying to juggle finishing that research paper, trying to juggle online classes, some face-to-face classes with the fifth formers in preparation for CSEC. So up until the 31st of July, it was extremely stressful. I am glad for the break a bit. However, I've been going in for the students who have exams, the fifth formers who continue to have exams. I'm the fifth form year head. And so I would go to ensure that students are there on time. And so it's been a bit more relaxed now, but it's been a stressful period for me.
Well, I can say the same, but as I said, I am not in the classroom, all right? But even though I'm not in the classroom, I had to be on compound to support teachers. We went back to school in May to prepare the performers so that they can get face-to-face instruction because they were preparing for CXC. And so even though I was not in the classroom as administration, I had to be on compound. So it is going, going, going. And even when they went off to prepare for the exams, we had to be on school compound when they come for exams. This week, I think yesterday was the last of the orals for French. And so administration had to be going in. And so it has been stressful. It was a new thing, but I think it has been going well. And even though it's stressful, we did it for the students. And the next week now, in preparation for the new school year, administration has to be on compound again to plan. So it has been a long year. It has not ended as yet. I don't know when it will end because we have to begin planning again for the 2020-2021 term. But that's the job of the teacher.
Well, from hearing from Damon and Denise, I shouldn't complain. We went up to middle July, and it felt like we were going on like forever. And why it felt that way was because we were actually doing over term 1 and 2 syllabus. We were not allowed to do term 3. So it felt like we were just repeating and repeating and repeating the same thing. And the time was just drawing on to like mid-August, and the students and some teachers are starting to feel a bit drained. But I wouldn't complain because we didn't have to go until now.
And I just want to highlight, we have different perspectives this afternoon, and I'm going to ask Carrie Ann to answer the next question first, because she teachers in the primary school setting. And ironically, all three of them are in leadership in different capacities. Ironically, I don't think that was planned, but Carrie Ann teaches in the primary setting, while the other two persons teaching in secondary are working in secondary setting. So there's a different perspective there. And I want you kind of to highlight, as we look forward into the new school year, what do you see as some of the major challenges that both teachers and parents and children, all of them really, will have going forward into this new school year in this new environment that we are living in? Carrie Ann, let's start with you.
Well, for the small ones, we know them. As soon as they see each other, they want to hug. They don't only want to hug each other, they want to hug us, the teachers. So we know with COVID, how we have to be 3 feet up to 6 feet apart. That is going to be a struggle. We may tell them, no, don't come, but it's going to still happen. And with the smaller children, especially the infant department, you find students get colds very quickly. So imagine now with COVID, how it will be. So that will kind of be a challenge. Having to use the bathrooms. How often can a janitor go in and wipe behind each child? And when I mean wipe behind, you know what I mean? Wipe behind each child, clean up after each child. And to keep the distance is going to be a bit challenging for the small ones to keep them apart. And even if we do succeed in keeping them away from each other during this time, when it's time for them to walk home or be at the bus stops or so on, they are still going to be on to each other. So in a situation like this, we have to go to God for prayer and just ask for, I don't know, good health and prosperity. But it will be a challenge, but I think we'll be okay though.
From the perspective of the teachers, I think that it's a major paradigm shift. We're talking about technology in the classroom, and we've been trying to institute that over the past 2 years. But for a paradigm shift to take place, it usually takes about 3 to 5 years for that mentality to fully change. Now we're trying to change that within 2 to 3 months. So for teachers, it's a great challenge. I myself, I like to think of myself as being au fait with technology, but online classes were still uncomfortable for me. And I'm hoping that the upcoming courses that we have planned, that the Ministry of Education has planned in SYNCITS, will help me to get more comfortable. As a teacher, I like that personal interaction, that face-to-face interaction. You can gauge students better in terms of their responses to certain questions. And so it's going to be difficult for teachers to wrap their mind and get more comfortable. So I'm asking parents to be mindful of that. From the parents' perspective, I would imagine that parents have to as well become more au fait with the technology. Check your emails regularly because that is how schools, for the most part, are going to start to communicate with you. You children who have online studies, because some countries have blended learning where you would have face-to-face and you still have online courses. So how do we monitor the children who are at home and should be online? Yes, they may be online in terms of the computer, but are they actually sitting behind the computer? So that's going to be a challenge. And then we have from the students, I think Carrie Ann mentioned the social distancing. Even for the high school students, I see that being an issue. And we are talking about wearing masks all day. Even though we're proposing a shift system in SYNCITS for the larger schools, for a child to wear a mask from 8:30 to 12 o'clock, that is still asking a lot. And so that's going to be very difficult. How do you manage that? And so there's still a lot of uncertainty that is ahead of us.
Okay, it's similar with what Damon was saying, all right? Like I said, the performers had to return to school in May, and we saw that even though they were the upper school students from 16, it was difficult for them to maintain physical distance. You know, they will hug. We had to be telling them, remember, and we're talking about boys because I'm at a boys' school. We had to be telling them, you don't have to be physically distanced. And so when we tell them, yes, they move apart, but after we are not there, then they go close to each other again. In reference to the classes, there had to be changes because some of our classrooms can't hold more than 12 students with the 6 feet apart distance. And so that is why we're going to be having shift systems too and alternate days for classes. And we saw how it could work in our schools because after every session, we had cleaners going in and cleaning and so on, right? So it can work, but that does not take away the discomfort that some parents are feeling at this time. And some of them here asking for homeschooling. That's an option, yes, but even though it's homeschooling, you know, they have to go through the Ministry of Education and it's not just to say, I'm going to stay home and teach my child. There has to be a process and there has to be a plan. And so they have to go through the Ministry of Education. And so there are challenges and some teachers too, even those who did not, because not all teachers came out from May to July when we had to go back to school. Some teachers have been home and they have been doing online teaching. And the question now is how they're going to feel when they have to come back face to face. But in reference to the online teaching, we have had training. All right, the ministry has taken it upon itself to train all teachers. Even now, the Summer Institute program that we have online training because the ministry has decided to put all schools in Antigua, both public and private, on the G Suite, the Google Suite, and so training has been taking place. In addition, the Ministry of Education also has plans to train parents so that they too can follow what their children are doing. And we're going to use the television. We have a channel designated for that so that the training can be done for parents. And so it's going to be challenging, but as long as everybody is on board, I think we can go for it. We can get it.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. As you were talking, I was thinking about the fact, well, from my perspective, I would have heard more individual experiences, both parents and teachers. And, the reality is most persons probably weren't as honest or open about how much this thing has impacted on them, both emotionally and mentally. I think um, change in and of itself is very daunting. So change that you really aren't prepared for or change that you really probably would not prefer is not really ideal. And I think one of the things that you just identified, Denise, is the buy-in by all the persons involved. So there needs to be buy-in by administrators, and by teachers, buy-in by parents. I think one of the greatest challenges persons had in the last couple of months was that buy-in by parents. Yes, there were those parents that bought in to the point of obsessing over the issues and the technology and being really, 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 really stressed out about it. And then there were the parents who were absent. And we recognize that transitioning in this time really requires that buy-in. Can you talk to me a little bit about that buy-in, both by teachers and both by parents? Those two groups in particular, what that buy-in would need to look like? Because I'm hearing that generally you're splitting up classes, you're doing shift system, you're doing rotation. All I'm hearing is that there's more work for teachers. So talk to me about that. Any one of you share a little bit about that buy-in.
I will start with the parents. I tend to worry a lot about the students whose parents might be working two jobs or the ones who are in the low streams who might not be getting the attention that they necessarily need. I know that I have one or two students in my classroom who you would deem disgusting, and I try to imagine how they will sit behind a computer screen um, for 2 sessions, 3 sessions of classes. The parents, I think a lot of onus, we've talked about parental involvement in education for years and years. And this is when it really, really need more input from the parents and from those persons who are in that particular student's life, whether it be a big sister, whether it be an uncle, aunt, things of that nature. There's a lot more monitoring that needs to take place. We've heard countless stories of students having to babysit while online classes have been going on, or students having to go and maybe sell peanuts or whatever the case might be to help at home. So whereas before it was a lot more easier in terms of social welfare, making sure that children come to classes because we have our attendance, now it becomes more difficult to monitor those children. And so we need the parents on board. I have not figured out a way how do we get those parents who have not been showing up to the parent teachers meetings over the previous years. How do we get them involved? Do we have one-on-one meetings? Do we have class meetings? So it's something for us to wrap our minds around. The teachers, I would say for the most part, the teachers know that this is their job. Yes, it's difficult for most of them to transition to the use of technology, especially teachers who've been in the system for quite a while and would have not been using technology in the classroom. So I see the difficulty, but I also see teachers who are willing to learn, teachers who are asking questions and who are open to trying new things. So I am hopeful for the teachers. I don't know if it's a case of persons making sure they keep their job, but the teachers are trying, but the parents, we need them on board.
Carrie, any thoughts?
For my experience to my parents, I can say 95% of them were very cooperative. But what I had to do was to contact them daily on WhatsApp as a broadcast list of a schedule of what will happen for the day. So I had to keep in constant contact with them so that they would know what is happening. But as the country was opening, parents had to go back to work. So then had to leave a sibling to sit with the child. And most of the time it did work. But if we are to extend this a little longer, it will kind of get, I don't know, because some of these same students are CSE students, these older siblings. So then it became a problem where the child couldn't come on. So it does have the negative there. But I must say that most parents were willing. They saw what teachers go through and they were like, oh goodness, I know, see what happened. And I found that they were doing the work for the students. They were so excited most of the time. They would be answering the questions and not the child. So a lot of them were really seeing what their child do during the day. So I can say that that is a plus. For the teachers, have an experience of a more senior teacher than I am. She will call me daily and ask me, what button you press now? How you get on today? So got to that. She said, I don't mean to bother you, you know. But she was willing to learn to get on, but it was becoming a bit frustrating for her. But I let her know, you know what, one thing at a time, and she got adjusted. So I believe that we as teachers are learning too. So teachers, students, and the parents, we all learn together. So it is an experience. We're in a season now, but guess what? We are going to get through it together. I do believe that.
Any thoughts, Denise, on that? Anything to add?
Well, I think that when we had the online, we weren't able to reach all the students, and that is because some parents did not have access to internet, all right? And so what the Ministry of Education has done is to encourage the government of Antigua to talk to the providers of the internet flow and so on. And they have decided to zero rate the websites that the students will use for online learning. And because we're using the G Suite and because we are planning to have training for parents, and I believe that they will show a little more interest. All right. And they have been asking what is going to happen in September. And because they have been told, they have been advised what is going to happen, I believe as long as they have access to the internet and so on, they will support the school. And that is what we're hoping for. And the same thing with the jobs and so on, because the country had opened up and parents have gone back to work. And with the shift system, like Damon said, some students may be home alone because the biggest students, the bigger siblings will be going to school. And so parents now will have to decide what's going to happen to my children, what's going to happen to my child. And that's going to be challenging for them.
I just wanted to jump back in and pick up on what Carrie would have stated, that the parental involvement at the primary school level seems to be greater than the high school level. We find that parents hold the hand, so to speak, of the primary school students until they reach high school. And then from that point, it's like, I let your hand go, you're on your own, so to speak. But I want to encourage parents not to give their children that much credit per se. Yes, they are developing, they are maturing, and the responsibility will come, but it still needs some guidance. And so I'm appealing to parents who have high school students. Please, at this particular time, please check in on them more than ever. Please check with the teachers. Don't rely on your child to tell you whether they have homework or not. I know that for more cases than not, more work is going to be sent to students to be done at home because of the time that is being given face-to-face or online. And so it requires that home setting that allows them to do that homework as well. Put aside an hour a day where the child can sit on the table and do some work. So I'm really appealing to the parents of high school students to hold that hand once again and to help them through this period.
Yeah, excellent point, and it's a good segue for us because as you were talking, I keep, well, I guess this is my profession thinking out loud, but I thought about one, those children and their parents who do not have access, who continue to not have access, or even when they get access through these different means, they are limited because of they don't have electricity or they don't have the opportunity to spend sitting down because they have other things they have to do in the home. They have greater responsibilities. I'm thinking about those children who have special needs. I've been thinking about those children who have emotional, psychological, physical abuse in their homes, neglect. Um, those are the children that I think about predominantly, the ones that might show some red flags in the next couple of weeks. Even those children who, quote unquote, and I don't like the word normal, but come from what appears to be normal homes, but might not be adapting well. Um, Children are developing anxiety more than before, in my opinion. What can we say to those children? What can we say to those parents of those children? And how do you foresee looking out for those children who might have particular needs or have particular challenges?
Okay, we have counselors in the schools, right? And all that we have to do is to encourage parents and students that if they're feeling down, if they're not sure how to manage, they can always come to the school and talk to the counselor. And this is organized by the ministry, and we encourage this to happen. And so it's an open door situation where the students will be encouraged to talk. You have the first thing is your form teacher, and then the form teacher can tell the counselor that you have a problem. And so let them be open as to their feelings.
I would say that for the most part, the government of St. Kitts has done a good job in terms of trying to reach out to those households that might not have internet or devices. The ministry would have embarked on ensuring that homes that do not have internet, that service providers provide internet for those homes, and a number of devices were given out to students as well. I don't know if they have been able to reach everyone. I don't think that is the case, but they're making that particular effort. As Ms. Gilbert would have said, Denise would have said, there are counselors who are available as well. But it's very challenging. No matter how you look at it, it's going to be very challenging. What we need is more parents reaching out to say what the problem is. Um, there are only so many counselors that are available at the school. At our school, we have about 3 counselors and about 800 students. So they're the cases that the counselors are aware of, and so they will pay attention to those students. But the students who are struggling, who the counselors before would not have thought of being in danger in any particular way, we need parents to reach out to us to say, you know, I'm having difficulty with my child due to what is taking place at the moment. I would have mentioned earlier that I'm worried as well about those students who are on the, I don't know how to put it over, on the edge, so to speak, where school was the only safe area, safe space for them. How do those students cope? And I think there are going to be a number of behavioral issues as students come back out to school in September. They would have been home. The rules and the different things that they're used to, they have not been doing that since May. And so now back into September, not only are they going to have to follow the school rules, but now there are about 10 additional rules that they need to follow. So it's going to be interesting to see how they cope and how teachers cope as well.
Unfortunately, at our level, primary, we don't have counselors inside the school. They will have to go out of the school to get help needed. And also, unfortunately, there are few students who are unable to come on since March. We haven't seen her since March because either they didn't have a device or they didn't have internet. Some of them were, most students were given a device from the ministry, but some still did not come on. And unfortunately, again, these students are the students who we will call naughty, the ones who are behind academically. And that's one thing I'm really worried about, what is going to happen when we come face to face again. Where will they be? Because they have missed out on so much already. So that is a very big concern at this time.
I'm glad you made that point, Carrie Ann, in terms of the catching up. I think you alluded to the fact that a lot of the teaching that would have gone on in the last couple of weeks to months may not have encompassed the entire school year. I don't think it would have or could have, given the restraints that we had. So I'm thinking about those children going into exam year. So those going into what we would have in Bar Business Class 4, CSC level, CAPE level, those going into those critical years, they may not be going into it as prepared as, previous generations. Maybe going in a little handicapped. In terms of that, because I want to start with, I want to go to a place of encouragement, because we could get really down here if we're not careful. But how do we encourage those children? Because I know some of them are freaking out. I know some of them already had a lot of pressure on them, and we want to kind of just give them a little perspective, build resilience. What do we say in terms of that catching up? How do teachers catch up? How do you not feel overwhelmed? And so on. Share your thoughts as you.
One thing the government has done or the ministry has done is try to extend the school term. And so we have one additional week of teaching that will take place this school year. The ministry has also, well, given the social constraints as well, the ministry has also put a temporary halt to extracurricular activities. And so more time, the emphasis is more time being spent in the classroom. That is the message that's being sent loud and clear. Even for second term, where we usually have sports, at this point the ministry is saying they're not too sure about that as yet, because the academics is what the students need to catch up on at this particular time in our history and what is taking place with COVID-19. Outside of that, I'm hoping that usually we have teachers who go beyond the call of duty, ensuring that students are prepared. We have teachers I know would have been on their devices till 9:30 in the evening, making sure that children get ready for the exams that are taking place. This is the CSEC group especially. And so I know we have a number of dedicated teachers who are going to do their best. Most of the curriculum, and that is what I want to share with parents, not to necessarily panic, but most of the curriculum is what we call a spiral curriculum, so that you're building on concepts that you would have learned previously. So it's not necessary to say that you're starting from ground zero every time you go to a particular class. Teachers would need to have the patience. If you're starting a new topic, there must be prerequisites for that particular topic. And so teachers need to have that patience to spend a bit more time on the prerequisites for the new topic to ensure that children, okay, you might have missed this, but this is what we need to do in order to move on to this particular topic. So it is a spiral curriculum in most cases, and we are going to have to rely heavily on our dedicated teachers to try and play catch up.
I agree with Raymond. Okay, they are dedicated teachers, and teachers want to know that when my students go into the CSEC exam, they're going to be ready. And so I believe that the teachers are going to do their best, do all that they can to have them prepared for the exam. And like Damon said too, CXC doesn't begin in Form 5, right? The concepts are built on, and teachers know where they are and they know where the students are going to be. And so we just have to encourage the students they will have to do the work too, right? They have to continue with the teachers as they give them the information. They will have to continue with the teachers, and as teachers and students work, then the parents too will have to make sure that the students are on time. And like Damon said, our government too has decided to give computers and tablets to students. The secondary school students, they have computers. We have ebooks, and they're going to extend it to the primary school, hopefully. And as long as they have those things and teachers do their best, I think the students will be ready for the exam that they have to take.
I believe that all will be well. I think we, as teachers, principal, ministry of education, we have to step into this next step as positive as possible. We have to give off the best positive energy possible in order to make this work. If we go in negative, oh, this not going to work, oh, this, I can't do this, I can't. If we go in like that, it's not going to work. But if we show these students, yes, you can do it, we can make it. Yes, we're behind, but we will catch up. We are going to get this done. And we just have to encourage each other and just make the best of this situation. Let's get rid of all the negativity and focus on what is working and step forward in faith. And that's my encouragement to teachers, parents, and students.
Thank you so much for that. And that's literally kind of how we want to end this session today, just by encouraging teachers and parents and students, recognizing, you know what, believe it or not, children are much more resilient than we think. Actually, they tend to be more resilient than adults. They tend to deal with things a little better sometimes because they're not as stuck as we can be in our ways, and they tend to deal with change and adversity pretty well, and that's kind of where we want to encourage and emphasize that as much as it might be difficult, and everybody's in the same boat. Well, everyone's like going through the same storm. Our boats might be a little different, but everyone's going through the same storm. So, it's kind of just having that empathy and building that resilience. Any other thoughts to add to Carrie Ann's thought about what would be good tips to kind of just strengthen that resilience and going forward into this new year? Damon and Denise?
I would just like to add that parents, teachers, and students, we have to go into this new year with a more open mind than ever before. We don't know what can happen. We don't know if we can have a resurgence in cases where school may have to close prematurely again. And so we must keep an open mind. As you made a point earlier, we cannot be as rigid as we used to be. We have to be a lot more flexible, and we have to be a lot more understanding. And so that is what I want to ask for from both parents and teachers, that you try to place yourself in that person's foot, try to understand that teachers have families as well. Teachers have students as well, who they might be worried about as well. And so we really need to be there for each other and try to see how we can assist each other in meeting, because at the end of the day, we're all trying to achieve the same goal, the same end, which is to have a well-rounded student who is successful in society. And so let's try not to lose focus of that and let's try to work together in order to achieve that.
Okay, the same thing. Embrace the changes, embrace the newness, and we will all get.
Awesome. Thanks so very much for that. I just want to encourage persons to see this as an opportunity. I think there are a lot of opportunities being presented to us that we would have never had before. There's new ways of learning, new ways of doing things that will make life a little bit more efficient and effective. And because of that, we can only grow and develop. And I think that's kind of where we kind of need to position our thoughts and our perspective. We thank you once again for joining this session of Courage in Crisis. We hope that something that we've said would have resonated with you. If you have any questions or queries, feel free to email or message or connect with us. As usual, when I'm on, I like to tell persons one of the best ways to deal with any adversity or stress is to connect. So reach out to your parents, reach out to your children's teachers, reach out to parents in your classroom. I think it's going to take a lot more, and person's going to have to go beyond the call of duty, but being really deliberate in reaching out and connecting and communicating will be really impactful as we begin this new school year. I know that most teachers still have a couple of days to weeks before they go back to school. So I'm going to encourage all teachers out there to relax, unwind, get some rest, just do something for yourself. Just, if as much as possible, fit it into your busy schedule. Just, make sure that you undergird yourself and you pour into yourself as you prepare for the next couple of months ahead. Thank you so much for joining us, and we wish you all the very best until we speak again on another session of Courage in Crisis.